Right, diving right in today. And we're getting tactile.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, embossing, debossing.
Yes.
These techniques, I mean, you see them everywhere on notebooks and journals.
Notebooks, journals, you see it on packaging.
Packaging, yeah.
High-end,
It's that extra little detail.
Yeah.
But have you ever, like, stopped and really thought about, like, how do they actually do that?
Yeah, how do they make it happen? And more importantly, like, why? Why even bother?
Right, because, I mean, you pick up a notebook that has one of those finishes, and it feels, more...
Premium.
Premium, yeah.
Luxurious. It feels like you've got something special in your hand.
Yeah. And it's not by accident.
No, not at all.
So both embossing and debossing, they both they involve, like, pressing a design into the material. Right.
Right.
But what we're going to look at today is really how the end results are so different.
Yeah, distinct.
Visually, but also how it feels.
How it feels in your hand, yeah.
So that's our deep dive today. It's understanding the differences between embossing and debossing. And we really want you, the listener, to walk away from this, especially if you're thinking about, making these awesome notebooks or journals, maybe for your business.
Yes.
Whether it's, corporate gifts, or maybe you're starting your own stationery line, or you're even thinking retail.
Yeah.
We want you to know how to make the right choice, because it's more than just like a little extra something.
Right.
It can really elevate your product.
Absolutely. And, let's face it, we're kind of inundated, flooded with notebooks and journals out there.
So many choices.
So many choices. So to really stand out in a crowded marketplace,
Yeah.
these little details, they really make a big difference.
Huge difference.
And they tell a story about your brand.
They do. They communicate value.
Quality, yeah.
So where should we even begin?
Well, let's start with embossing, I think. Let's unpack that a little bit.
Okay, embossing. So at its core, it's this printing technique.
Mm-hmm.
And what it does is it creates this raised three-dimensional design on paper or cardstock.
Right. It's like if you imagine pushing a shape, like from underneath a rug.
I like that.
You get that bump, that noticeable bump on the surface.
Yeah. So how do they get that bump?
Well, it all starts with these custom-made dies.
Okay.
And they're typically made from metal, and they're etched. So one die has like the raised version of your design.
Okay.
And then the other die has the corresponding like recessed image.
Okay.
And then you take your material, your paper, your cardstock, you put it between these two dies, and then boom, you apply a lot of pressure.
So it's physically like smashing it.
It is. And it forces the fibers of that paper, that material, to actually reshape.
Okay.
And that's what gives you that lovely raised effect on the front.
Okay, so pressure is obviously a huge part of this, but it's not just the pressure, right?
You're absolutely right. So the amount of detail that you have in those metal dies is critical.
Okay.
Because that's going to dictate how much detail you capture.
Right.
But also the weight of the paper, the thickness, the cardstock, that plays a big role too.
Okay.
Because a heavier material is going to hold that embossed shape much better.
Right.
It's going to be more pronounced. It's going to be more visually appealing.
It's going to be crisper.
Crisper, exactly.
So you couldn't like emboss, a really, really thin sheet of paper and expect to get the same effect?
No, you wouldn't.
You need something thicker.
You need something more substantial.
Okay. Now, I've noticed, when I have embossed material, the back of it always feels kind of indented.
Yeah.
Is that just like a natural part of the process?
It is. It is a natural part of the process. And that's because you're literally pushing the material up
Right.
to create that raised design on the front. So there's got to be somewhere for that material to go.
Right. It's displaced.
So it goes in.
Interesting. So it's kind of like a trade-off you got to be aware of.
It is, especially if the back of your notebook or journal is visible.
Right.
Or if you need it to be smooth for some reason.
Interesting. Okay. So when you're thinking about embossing, when does it really like shine? What kind of effect, what kind of impact does it have?
Well, it's great for emphasizing key elements.
Okay.
So if you think about a corporate logo on a notebook,
Okay.
that raised texture just makes it pop.
Yeah.
It makes it noticeable.
Uh-huh.
It gives it a very modern, a very stylish feel.
Yeah.
It really makes a statement.
It does. Okay, so let's dig into the pros, like the specific advantages. When you choose embossing, what are you getting?
Well, first and foremost, it's eye-catching.
Right.
It really grabs your attention. It's not just flat.
Right.
It's three-dimensional. You can feel it.
Tactile.
It's tactile. And that really plays into, the perception of quality.
Okay.
It feels like a higher quality item.
It does.
And that tactile thing is I think, really important because you want to, like, touch it.
Yeah, it invites touch.
Yeah.
And then that experience of touching it adds to the whole, premium feel.
Yeah.
Now, the other great thing about embossing is detail.
Okay.
It can really enhance those fine lines, those subtle curves,
Yeah.
intricate details in a logo.
Yeah.
And that level of detail just adds a layer of, sophistication.
So it's not just about the boldness, it can also be about the little things.
It's about the nuances.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, I remember reading that embossing is really good when you pair it with foil printing.
Yes. It's like a match made in heaven.
Why? Why is that?
Because the raised surface of the embossing, it's like the perfect little landing pad for the foil.
Ah.
So the foil adheres to it beautifully. You get a much cleaner, sharper application.
So it's not going to smudge.
It's not going to smudge. It's not going to be uneven. And then when the light hits that foil on that raised surface, ooh, it just sparkles. Yeah, I mean, it's luxurious.
It's high-end. It's special.
Yeah, so if you're going for that bold statement,
Yeah.
like you want something that is going to, like, make people stop and look,
Yeah.
and you really want to communicate that this is a high-quality product.
Yes.
Embossing seems like it's a good choice.
It's definitely a strong contender.
Yeah, okay. Let's talk about the flip side, debossing. What's the core difference here?
So debossing, think of it as the opposite of embossing.
Okay.
Instead of raising the design, you're pressing it into the surface.
Okay, so it's sinking in
Sinking in, yeah, like making an imprint in soft clay.
like a stamp.
Like a stamp, exactly.
Yeah.
So you have this recessed effect.
Okay, so it's going down into the material.
Mm.
Can you leave that indentation just plain, or do you usually do something to it?
You can absolutely leave it plain, and that's often called a blind deboss.
Okay.
It's very subtle, very sophisticated, but you can also dress it up.
Okay.
You can fill that recessed area with ink or foil stamping, just like you can with embossing.
So you can get creative with it.
You can, yeah.
Okay, so what about the back of the material with debossing? Is it like embossing where it has that kind of indented opposite effect?
That's a good question, and it's a key difference.
Okay.
Debossing usually doesn't affect the back of the material.
Really?
Yeah, because you're pushing down into the material to make that indentation on the front.
Right.
So the back stays pretty smooth.
Interesting. Okay, so that's a big plus if you need to use both sides, like if you have a notebook,
Absolutely.
or if you want the inside to just feel really smooth.
Yeah, it's a nice clean finish on the back.
Okay. So how do they actually achieve this debossed look?
They use a metal stamp,
Okay.
and your design is etched or engraved into that stamp, and then that stamp is pressed with a lot of force onto your material.
Okay, so it's kind of like a reverse cookie cutter almost.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
And to get a really crisp, clean deboss, you have to be very precise.
Okay.
The temperature, the pressure, the speed, it all matters.
So it's a bit of an art form.
It is.
Interesting. All right, so what are the advantages, the pros of debossing? What makes it a good choice?
Well, one practical advantage is if you choose to add ink to that debossed area,
Okay.
the fact that it's recessed helps to contain the ink.
Okay.
So you're less likely to get any bleeding or feathering.
So it stays nice and crisp.
Nice and crisp, especially if you've got a logo or text.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, it looks really sharp.
Okay, that's a big deal when you're talking about, professional branding and stuff.
It is. You want it to look really professional.
Yeah, for sure.
And then the other big advantage is durability.
Okay, yeah, we talked about that a little bit, but let's dig into it.
Debossed designs, they're pressed in.
Right.
So they're much more resistant to wear and tear.
That makes sense because it's kind of protected.
It is. It's kind of nestled in there.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's raised up, it's more likely to get rubbed or snagged.
Right.
So it's going to stay looking sharp for a longer period of time.
So if you've got something that you know is going to be handled a lot,
Yes.
debossing is probably the way to go.
It's a good choice. And then finally, debossing just has this subtle, impactful, three-dimensional effect.
Okay.
It's a little more understated, a little more refined.
It's not shouting at you.
It's not shouting.
Yeah.
It's whispering elegance.
It's that quiet confidence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of clients, especially those looking for that high-end feel,
Yeah.
they love that.
Yeah, they prefer it.
They prefer it.
Okay, so it's elegant, it's timeless, it's professional.
It is.
Yeah.
It's about making a statement without being loud.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've looked at both of these techniques,
We have.
but I want to get down to like the core differences.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously one is raised, one is recessed,
Right.
but what else is there to consider?
Well, that tactile difference, the raised versus recessed, leads to a lot of other differences.
Okay.
Like visually, embossing, it's bold.
Yeah.
It's in your face.
It wants attention.
It wants attention.
Yeah.
And it's really effective for logos, big design elements,
Okay.
debossing. It's subtle.
Yeah.
It's refined. It's often favored for professional items, luxury items.
When you want that understatement.
Exactly. Less is more.
Yeah. And what about how they wear? We touched on this a little bit, but it's a big one.
Durability is huge.
Yeah.
So embossed designs, they're raised.
Right.
They're more prone to wear and tear.
Right. They're sticking out.
They are. They're exposed.
Yeah.
Debossing tucked away, safe and sound.
They're protected.
They're protected, so they tend to last longer.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah.
And finally, let's talk about cost. I mean, is there a general difference in price?
There is. Generally, embossing is more expensive because the dyes are more intricate and it requires a lot of precision during production.
Okay.
Debossing, you still get that premium look, but it's usually a little easier on the wallet.
So a little more cost effective.
It is, especially if you're doing a large production run.
Okay. So now for the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
How do you decide which technique is right for you?
Yeah.
Your notebooks, your journals, your business. It's a lot to consider.
It is. There's a lot of nuances. But the most important thing is to really think about your brand.
Okay.
Your brand identity, the message you want to send.
Like, are you loud and proud?
Yeah.
Or are you a little more subtle?
Understated.
Understated.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, if you're all about impact, if you want to stand out, if you're projecting luxury,
Okay.
embossing is probably your best bet. It's got that wow factor.
It does.
But if you're about sophistication,
Yeah.
understated quality,
Okay.
that timeless elegance,
Yeah.
debossing is going to be a better fit.
Okay, so the material that you're using, does that matter?
Material matters.
Oh, okay.
Embossing, you're going to get the best results on the thicker materials.
Okay.
Something that can hold that shape.
Right, so it doesn't collapse.
Yeah. Heavy cardstock, leather, things like that. Debossing, you have a little more flexibility.
Okay.
You can use a wider range of thicknesses.
Okay, and what about the design itself? Like, how complex is it? How big is it?
Design definitely plays a role.
Okay.
Embossing is great for those large logos.
Okay.
Bold graphics, intricate patterns.
Right, because it really brings it out.
And brings it to life.
Yeah.
Debossing, it can handle detail,
Okay.
but it shines with simpler designs.
Okay.
Like text-based designs, smaller icons.
Right.
It's very classic, very refined.
And we keep coming back to durability.
We do. It's important.
It's a big one.
It is.
So if you want that design to last,
Yeah.
if you know it's going to be used a lot, debossing's got that advantage.
It does. It's more resilient.
And budget. I mean, budget's always a consideration.
Always a consideration.
So embossing, as we said, it's a little pricier.
It is.
So if you're watching your pennies.
Or you need a lot of items.
Yeah.
Debossing can be a better choice.
Okay. So you still get that premium finish,
Yes.
but it's maybe a little friendlier.
A little friendlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So what about color? Can you add color to these?
You can add color to both.
Okay.
Foil stamping, ink, you can get creative.
Okay.
With embossing, if you add color to that raised area, it really pops.
Right.
It creates a lot of contrast, but it does add to the cost and complexity.
Okay.
The debossing, that little recess,
Yeah.
perfect for filling with foil or ink.
Okay.
It's subtle, but it's still really effective.
Yeah.
So it depends what you're going for.
And I guess it also depends on who you're making these for.
It does. Who's your target audience?
Yeah, like what are they going to use this for?
So if you're creating something really high-end,
A special edition, maybe a gift. Embossing, that's a powerful way to convey exclusivity.
right. But if it's more for everyday use,
Yeah.
you want something classic, professional,
Yeah.
maybe debossing's the way to go.
It's a good choice.
And I think we haven't talked much about the feel, like actually the feel of
Oh, the tactile experience?
Yeah.
That's huge.
embossing's got that texture, right?
It does. You can really feel that
Yeah.
raised design.
It's very tactile.
And that just adds to the whole,
The quality.
the quality, the experience.
Mhm.
Debossing, you've got that visual depth, but it's smoother.
Right.
It's not quite as prominent.
Okay.
So, if you're really all about that tactile element,
Yeah.
embossing is going to deliver.
Okay, so at the end of the day, you got to match the technique
Yeah.
with your brand
Absolutely.
and with what you're making.
And how you want people to feel when they hold that notebook in their hands.
Yeah.
So embossing is for that bold statement, that luxury.
Wow factor.
Yeah, and debossing is for that subtle,
A quiet
the
elegance.
timeless quality. So
Exactly.
it's really amazing how you can take, a simple notebook
Yeah.
and you can transform it into something really special.
It's all about the details.
So as you're, thinking about your next project, I want you to think beyond just the look of it. Think about
Yes.
how it feels.
That tactile experience.
Because that difference in texture,
That's what makes it memorable.
it does. That raised impression of embossing, that recessed feel of debossing, how does that change how someone feels about the notebook?
Yeah, it's a whole other level.
It is, and it's
Yeah.
it's that sensory detail that can really set your product apart.
Absolutely. It's what makes it special.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we've gotten pretty tactile today.
I think we have.
This has been a fun deep dive.
It has. Always a pleasure.